It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. Congrats, your business is doing great. All your hard work is paying off, but you need help like now, and you have to hire fast. How can you hire amazing candidates quickly? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. And with sponsored jobs, your posts jump to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. One of the things I love most about Indeed is that it has one of the largest databases of job seekers, giving employers access to a wide range of candidates. And with job alerts, I get notified when new candidates apply. And with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. So how fast? Well, in the minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/smartpassive. Just go to Indeed.com/smartpassive right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/smartpassive. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. The perfect product launch. It's the goal for every brand marketer. High heat, fast sellout, and fans posting recipes like trophies. What do Sydney Sweeney's soap drop, Taylor Swift's tickets, and your next launch have in common? Well, they're not bought, they're bragged about. Fanfare turns your drop into a moment. Fanfare cues real fans, blocks bots, and builds launch experiences worth screenshotting. Want hype without the heartbreak? Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook with our proven success formula and make your next launch unforgettable at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, fanfare.io/playbook. This is a Smart Passive Income Podcast with Pat Flynn, session number 54. What?
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host, the guy who'd have a unibrow if it wasn't for his tweezers, Pat Flynn.
Still using a copy-paste website? Break the template trap with Framer. Whether you're overwhelmed by traditional site builders or frustrated with cookie-cutter designs, Framer gives you the freedom to create a site that's professional, polished, and uniquely yours. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. It's free to start, allowing you to browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something on your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, parallax scrolling, scroll animations, looping animations, and much more in seconds. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting, generating starter layouts, and can even translate your entire site to any language. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of pro on the house. That's framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. With running your own business, legal questions always come with the territory. Like, can I use this contract or agreement? What do I do if a client doesn't pay? Am I even structured the right way for taxes? Instead of Googling your way through legal landmines, imagine having a law firm ready to address your business's legal needs without the sticker shock. That's what you get with Legal Shield's small business plans. Legal Shield helps entrepreneurs access real legal help on contract reviews, collection letters, business formation guidance, and even help navigating IRS audits. Members can schedule consultations, upload documents through the app, and get support from a provider law firm that knows small business laws in your state. Plus, consultations on taxes or trademarks help you stay ahead of potential problems. And if a client is late on a payment, Legal Shield steps in with professional collection letters so you can protect your hard-earned revenue, all for a fraction of the price of hiring a lawyer on your own. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI.
Yep, it's true. I am a plucker. Hey, what's up? This is Pat Flynn, and welcome to the 54th session of the Smart Passive Income Podcast. I'm really happy to be recording more frequently this year, and I've got an amazing lineup of topics for solo shows and also interviews with some amazing people with some incredible success stories and advice for all of us. It's going to be awesome. In the meantime, I thought it'd be fun to share that since the last podcast session, the SPI podcast in total has crossed over the 2.5 million download mark, and the rate of downloads per day is definitely on the rise. We're averaging maybe 5,000 to 6,000 downloads per day. And when an episode comes out, like hopefully it will for this one, the downloads are between 12 and 20K for that day, and a little less the day after, and a little less the day after that. So really, all this just to say thank you for that. I know many of you have listened to multiple shows. I actually got a tweet today from a listener, Adam Ross. Adam, if you're listening, thank you so much. Adam Ross is over in the UK, and he told me through Twitter that he had just finished listening to 15 episodes in 3 days, which is totally incredible. But I know a lot of you are also first-time listeners too. And to you, if you're a first-time listener, thank you. I hope you enjoy the show. And if you like it, of course, you can dive into the archives. You can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever is convenient for you. So for today, I wanted to talk about something really, actually extremely important, something we all know about, something we all do every single day, but we don't really think about it, at least in as much detail as we're going to get into it today. So what is it? It's a click. Not click like, in high school, the cool kids had their click and the band people had their click, and I was in that click, the band click. That's not the type of click I'm talking about. I'm talking about people on their computers using their mice or their fingers on their touchpad or iPad or iPhone and actually physically clicking on a link. That's what I want to talk about today. It's such a small thing, but I mean, it takes a fraction of a second to actually happen. But the click is what initiates a path on your website. It's what leads to a transaction. It controls the experience that people have on your site. It helps people find what they're looking for, or even may help people find something that they didn't even know they were looking for. It's so small, yet it's so important, because online, without it, you wouldn't really have any results. Now, a lot of you know that I recently took archery lessons. That sounds like a funny transition into archery now, but there's a point. So I recently took archery lessons. My wife bought me lessons for my 30th birthday, which was awesome. In SPI Podcast 51 with Tim Ferriss, I actually talked about taking those lessons with him. I didn't take them with Tim, but I talked about taking those lessons on the show with him. And he gave me some tips and stuff like keep my head still, make sure I follow through and things like that. Well, I took the archery lessons, and I did pretty well, even on my first time out. I consistently would shoot in the red and yellow areas in the target, and after going back a couple times later, I felt like I was doing really good. I was really consistent. But, I'd go to the range and practice, and I met some ridiculously amazing archers, some way younger than me, like 12, 13-year-old kids who would just kill it. I mean, they could hit a dime from 20 yards away, and I wasn't even hitting a bullseye from 10. And it made me realize that there are actually a lot of parallels between archery and doing online business. Not just the fact that it seems like there's a lot of young people involved now who are just crushing it, but more so the fact that, I went there first time, and it was pretty easy to do okay. You hold the bow, you attach the arrow, you pull back, you aim and release, right? But in order to master archery, in order to master that skill, it's just there's a lot of little details that have to be learned and practiced and mastered. And I mean, fractions of a degree and angle that can change everything. You have to learn how to breathe steadily and control your heartbeat and all those sorts of things, how your fingers come off the string, all these things. And it's understanding all these things that could really make a difference in your performance, which is why I think understanding something as little as a click in online business and blogging is such a good thing to do. So I'm going to attempt to tackle this idea of the click today. You know, it might seem kind of crazy that all we're going to be talking about today is a simple action of a click, but there's so much to it when you really think about it. You know, what it takes to get people to click on something, what the link should say, should there even be a link at all? What about buttons or anchor text or calls to actions? You know, there's a psychology behind it. And if we can better understand what's going on when it comes to the simple action of a click, the better we can control how people click around our websites. And when you can do that, when you can control how people experience your website, you are on to something. When you can, based on your design of your website, which is a whole nother podcast episode in and of its own. We could talk for hours about website design. And I'm sure we're going to do that in the future, especially when Smart Passive Income gets redesigned here in the next couple months. But going back to it, when you can control people who arrive on your site based on the design of your website, the text or the copy that you have on your website, and what actions you enable them to take, for example, clicking on things, you are on your way to success. Now, did you hear how I just said what actions you enable them to take? That's really important. And that's really the first main point of all this is you own your own website or blog. You have total control of how people move around and navigate through it. You are in power, and you are the one that can enable people to click on stuff or not click on stuff or do anything. You know, be conscious about anything and everything you are doing on your site or you're having other people do on your site when they get there, especially when it comes to user experience. That's really what it's all about. The click is such an important part of that user experience. I mean, when people arrive on your site for the first time, they are given the option to read or click on something, right? And typically many of all of those things all at once. So that first impression when they arrive on your site is really important. But what happens when people click on something and they get deeper into your site? A couple of things happen. First, that little click is an example of what I like to call a mini transaction or like a mini commitment. You know, a click is good, even if it's not for a product or to subscribe to something, even if it's just to another page on your site, or even just to, you know, I don't know, enlarge a picture or graphic on your site. That little click is a sign that your reader is vested in your site to some degree. They haven't left yet, and they've made a decision to stick around and click on something, which means they want to explore further. That's really important. And there's some great strategies for getting people deeper and deeper into your site, which we'll go into. But beyond that, beyond the fact that it's a mini little commitment, or, you know, it's like a, hey, sure, let me see what you got type of thing. And this is something not very many people talk about. You know, when someone clicks on a link of any kind, it can sort of become a reset, you know, a transition. The page goes blank for just a second or a few seconds, and the page reloads another portion of your site. And, you know, once again, they experience that first impression. It's not the first impression of your whole site, but it's another new page they're visiting for the first time. And if it's not what they're looking for, or not what they expected, or it's not up to the quality of what they are already used to, then you have a problem, and people could leave. You know, it takes a lot of work to get people committed to keep going and go deeper and deeper into your site. But it just takes that one little misstep to send them away. So the main point here is just, again, to be conscious specifically of what people are clicking on and what happens and where they go when they do that. So the most obvious example, this is an extreme example, but it happens to a lot of us, is when a user clicks hoping to get some type of information, or because maybe you told them to go there, and then boom, a 404 error happens. It's a broken link. That page that they expected is not there. Most likely, those people are going to go away. You know, some will click the back button and give you like a second chance, but many, especially first-time visitors, you know, they're out. about that, actually, about the broken links, which I said are bad, obviously, there are two things you can do. Here's your first sort of, I guess, actionable item of the podcast. First, you can just check to make sure you don't have any broken links. You could do this a few ways. If you're set up with Google Webmaster Tools, again, there'll be a link in the show notes, which you can get at smartpassiveincome.com/session54. You can pick up Google Webmaster Tools, which is recommended, and you can get information directly from Google about what links are not found. So if you log into Google Webmaster Tools, you can see your site errors right there on your dashboard, or you can actually click on, I think there's a section on the left-hand side that says Health, and then you can go to Crawl Errors and get a list of all the bad links that are there. Sometimes they're links going to content on your own site. Sometimes they're links that go outside of your site that are broken. Either way, they're not good. Now, another tool you can use if specifically you're on the WordPress platform, you have a WordPress blog for your website. It's a plugin called Broken Link Checker, which will monitor links in your posts, your pages, and even comments and detect links that don't work. And it does a number of other things for SEO, search engine optimization, so you don't get docked for having too many of them. I think the plugin can prevent search engines from following those broken links, which is helpful. And you can also edit the broken links or delete them right from WordPress in one location in your backend instead of having to go from post to post and editing each one individually, which can get pretty annoying. Now, another strategy that I actually implement myself as well, it's sort of a fail-safe in case anyone ends up on a 404 page, which they shouldn't, but sometimes they do. This strategy is just basically having a redesigned 404 page or an optimized 404 page. So a lot of people forget that the 404 error page is actually a page on your site that potentially a lot of people can land on. So my page, my 404 page, you can actually find that by going to smartpassiveincome.com/ and then just slamming your head on the keyboard and typing random letters. Don't do that, but I'm just saying if you find an error, smartpassiveincome.com/ gibberish, and then you'll reach my 404 page. You'll see it has some text that says, "Sorry, the page you were looking for is not here. Please use the search function or the links below to help you find what you're looking for." And then there's a search bar under that, and then a list of my most popular posts, a list of categories and tags. That way, even if people, through error reach that page, they have less of a chance of ditching me. There's still stuff on that page that's useful. Most people on that page probably click on the most popular posts area, or they click on a category hoping to find what they were looking for. Now, I actually had my web designer do this for me because it does include some extra PHP code to show the most popular posts and things like that. Many WP themes or WordPress themes have a 404.php page that you can edit straight from the theme editor in WordPress. But if you don't know what you're doing, I would avoid doing that because you can totally screw up your theme. I've done that before, and it can be very confusing. But if you have a VA or a web developer or even a friend who can help you out, you can just ask them, "Hey, can you add this or that and this on my 404 page so I don't lose people in case they click and end up on a broken page?" Very useful stuff. So I went off on a little tangent there for a little bit, but I think that it's all important stuff. What happens when people click on a link and it's broken? It ruins the experience. So hopefully those things will help you. And now that we've covered that part of it, let's talk about linking within your posts. Obviously, this is where a lot of clicking will happen, but there are kind of two levels of links that you can include within your posts to get the kind of highest leverage, I guess you could say. Now, there are certain strategies that I like to follow that I'm going to share with you. And again, this is crazy that we've been talking, almost 15 minutes about clicks and links, but we still have a lot more to cover, and it's all hopefully going to be very helpful to you. So let's talk about the first level of links. Again, these are the types of links you can include within the posts that you write, what they are, when you should use them, and things to avoid and things like that. The first level is what I like to call "in case you were wondering." In case you were wondering. And these are links that are typically included within paragraphs and sentences within your post that link to things that where people can learn more information about something that they might not know about or they might want to learn more about. And the keyword there is might. It's not a call to action. That's what makes this first level. It's not aggressive at all. And there's no sort of request from you, the blog author or website owner, to click on this link, because you don't want people who already know what's on the other end to click it. You want those people to keep going or just pass over it or ignore it. But for the people who maybe aren't quite sure what you're talking about or need a little bit of confirmation or more information about whatever it is, or maybe who are just curious, these sort of in case you were wondering links can actually help those people go deeper into your site because they're learning and not getting confused along the way. A common use is linking to an older post that sort of defines something that you are now talking about in a new post. So for example, if I was writing a post about ways to get more traffic to your site and I mentioned the word pillar post in a section where I talk about writing epic content, for example, I'll link pillar post to a previous post where I explain more about pillar posts or have examples of pillar posts. So it might read like this. It might read, another strategy for getting traffic to your site is to simply write epic content. By publishing high-value pillar posts, you're more likely to create awareness to your articles for a longer period of time. So in that sentence where I mentioned pillar posts, I would link to an article that explains more about exactly what pillar posts are that I would have already written, or maybe it's someone else's article. I don't know. Pillar posts would be the anchor text. People who need that information, who are wondering about what it is, will click on it to learn more. People who do not will breeze over it and continue on. This is opposed to doing it this way. By publishing high-value pillar posts, click here to read more about pillar posts, you're more likely to create awareness to your articles for a longer period of time. Or, by publishing high-value pillar posts, you're more likely to create awareness to your articles for a longer period of time. Read more about pillar posts here. How is this different? They are essentially doing the same thing. They're linking to the same article, but really they're not the same. Because in these later examples, you're actually telling someone literally what to do. Click here to read more posts about pillar posts, or click here to read more about pillar posts. You want to save your call to actions for when it really matters in your post, not for these in case you're just wondering type stuff. You're still linking to it, which helps, but you don't need that call to action here for something like this because it doesn't really matter if people click on it or not. Now, you might be saying, well, what if I did it this way? And here's another example. If you're interested in reading more about pillar posts, click here. Now, that's different, and it does take care of the, it's not necessarily a call to action. It's not forcing people. It's saying that, hey, if you're sort of interested in reading more about this, click here. But that's 9 extra words that you don't need. And if you have a lot of those on your page or your post, it's going to break up the flow of your content, and it totally breaks it up. And anyone who already knows that information is going to just get annoyed because they're going to keep seeing these kind of sidebars within your post. You want your post to flow as much as possible. Now, a lot of people, especially in fields or industries or niches where there are a lot of definitions to cover, they'll use this kind of strategy, this in case you were wondering, link for definitions. Either definitions they've defined on their own site or simply linking to, say, like a Wikipedia article, for example, which I've done a few times on the blog when I didn't want to waste real estate on my site within a post to define something that I could have easily just, non-aggressively linked to in case anyone wanted to know more about that thing. Again, you want people to click when and where it matters to them and to you as well. The thing is, there are different kinds of people on your site. There's ones who need these links. It's non-aggressive, and to those who already know that information, they won't even see it as a link, and they'll keep reading. So that's the first link level. The second link level, the first one was, in case you're wondering, let me help you out. The second level is, I want you to click this. This is the call to action, the one where you are actually telling people what to do. You're telling people to click right here. Please visit this link. Click here to get this. Buy now, subscribe. Those are all strong commands. And there's sort of an art to the call to action, and some things I personally like to do when it comes to using the call to action, specifically as a link, because sometimes I'll have call to actions that are, just, hey, keep reading, which I sometimes use within posts when I'm going to reveal something that I've been creating buzz for. I'll say, hey, keep reading to find out. That is a call to action that keeps people going. Sometimes the call to action is just to simply leave a comment, in which case, they don't have to click on anything or on something before they start typing in a comment or an opinion or question. But here in today's session, we're talking about links. And before I get into how to use call to actions to get people to click on them, I want to talk about something that I saw in a post/video on socialtriggers.com with Derek Halpern. The post was titled, "What's the best color for high conversions?" And essentially, when we're talking about call to actions and clicks, we are talking about conversions. We use call to actions when we want people to do something, so we are aiming for higher conversions. So again, go to the show notes and click on the link for this video that I'm talking about if you want to watch it, smartpassiveincome.com/session54. It's a great video. All of Derek's new videos are fantastic and highly entertaining too. He has like bloopers in there and stuff. Now, in this video/blog post, what's the best color for higher conversions? He actually gives you the answer. Now, the answer is your particular site's action color. Now, if you go to socialtriggers.com and you look around, try and see what's purple. Purple is Derek's action color. Every part of his site where Derek wants you to do something, take some sort of action, is purple. His links are purple within his sidebar, in his posts. If you open up a post, there's a section at the top that's purple where you can subscribe to his email list. And this is kind of something that I might be able to improve on, because he talks about a site that mistakenly uses a red action color, which is the color that I use. And he told me it wasn't me that he was specifically talking about, but I am using red. So, the reason that might be not so good thing to do is because red is actually a stop color traditionally. Green is go, red is stop. But it's working for me. I'm getting clicks, but it is something I should probably test out. The major lesson here is that your links should definitely stand out on the page and hopefully match the sort of action color that you have on your site, the one that you've sort of trained your audience to understand that, hey, this is where I want you to do something. So going back to call to action, link level number 2, this is where you consciously, and I know I keep saying that word consciously, but I only say that so many times because and this is a problem that I have too. We just like to throw things up and hope that they work, and we don't really understand why we do what we do sometimes. But the call to action is where you want people to perform some sort of specific action, and it's where you're actually telling them to do that. If what's on the other end of that link doesn't really matter, then it doesn't deserve a call to action. Let me say that again. If what's on the other end of that link doesn't really matter, then it doesn't deserve a call to action. Think about that. You got to play your call to action card wisely. And I feel like a lot of people waste the call to action cards that they earn. Now, let me explain this a little bit more. When people arrive on our websites for the first time, we as the blog or website owner have 0 call to action, I'll call them points. We have 0 call to action points for a brand new visitor. Now think of a point as literally a point that we can redeem, and when you redeem more than you have, you're done for. That person's gone. So what happens when people come to your site for the first time and they read an article and you have an immediate call to action, like right at the top of the article? You've redeemed more points than you've earned. You haven't earned any yet, and you're either not going to get that person to act on that call to action, or you're never going to have that person come back to your site. So I typically leave my call to actions for after I've, quote, earned my call to action points from people. So how do you earn call to action points? Well, you just write really great stuff. You provide helpful information, stuff that is actually useful, that makes an impact on the reader, that introduces them to something new, that surprises them, that piques their curiosity, that you just give away so much information that they feel like they owe you, and they're going to look for a way to pay you back. And many times that is through some sort of call to action. Now, this is why most of my call to actions are going to be later in the posts, and sometimes right at the end. If I've written something that I know is helpful, that is a great article, then I know that when people reach the end of that post, that they have momentum, and you can take advantage of that momentum with a call to action. They've reached the end of your post. There's got to be something else for them to do. It's almost a sin not to ask them to do something else after they've read your post, whether it's leave a comment or click on something. Maybe it's read another article that you have, or maybe buy a product of yours, or buy a product that you're promoting as an affiliate, or share that article on Twitter or on Facebook. And actually asking them to do that, just having the buttons there isn't enough. You actually have to tell people to do it. And if they're at the end of the post, that's okay to do that. If you ask them to do that before them getting to know you and the content that you have, then that's not good. But if they've spent the time to read what you have, or watch the videos, or listen to your podcast, then you can tell them, I would love for you to share this. And more than likely, they will. And the more sort of call to action points you've earned along the way, the more actions that you can have, the more call to actions that you can have. Now, a lot of people take advantage of reader momentum by injecting call to actions, not just at the end of their posts. I could potentially be a little bit more aggressive with this, but they include them at the end of sections within their posts. A certain point was made or something was revealed, and then bam, call to action. And then another few paragraphs, another point made, and then bam, another call to action. Multiple call to actions within a post. You're sort of collecting and redeeming those call to action points along the way at the same time. And this can be helpful, especially if your post maybe covers a lot of different topics. Now, there's some important things to keep in mind when it comes to the call to action, and that is your goal for the reader. Now, we're going to be talking about, when to open, when people click on something, does it open a new link or a new window, or does it open in the same window? So let me explain. For link level 1, which is, again, the sort of, hey, just in case you're wondering type of link, that type of link should always, in my opinion, it should always open in a new window. Not in the same window, but a new window. And you could set this, and you can set your links to either open in the new window or the same window when you create those links in WordPress. Why? Why a new window? Because you ultimately want people to keep going down that original page that they were on. If you're linking to a definition or something, for example, or an older post even that you explain something more of, if you open into the same window, they lose their place in that original article where they were on. They might get sidetracked. Maybe you've linked to a YouTube video in the same window, and your article's gone. They're on YouTube now and they're watching you, but then on the sidebar there's a video for 6-pack abs that was featured. So they click on that, and then sooner than later they forgot about where they came from and they're on the floor doing sit-ups or something. You want your readers to be able to go back to where they were before they left you. So if you're going to include these links that are sort of like sidebars for people who need a little bit more information, always open them in a new window so people can close that and go back to where they were. Oh, that's what it was? Okay, well, let me go back to the original article. Not many people go back and then scroll down. I mean, you want people to do as little work as possible when it comes to navigation on your website. Now, with link level number 2, the call to action, do you open them in a new window or do you open them in the same window? Well, the answer is it depends. You have to ask yourself with each individual link, where do I want that reader, my readers, to end up? Literally think of their experience when clicking on that link, all the way until they eventually have the need to close that window or they finish up. The most obvious example would be if I were to link to a product of mine at the end of a post after delivering a ton of free content, including some copy about whatever that product could do, that would and should open in the same window because I'm continuing the path that they were on. If it's in the middle of a post, for example, and it opens up, maybe an article on another site that proves my point, or I don't want the reader to necessarily just leave, then it'll open in a new window because I want them to go back to where they were. Again, just sort of think about it from your reader's point of view. I think a lot of us don't do that as much as we should. I mean, that should be our number one priority, is to make the user experience on our site as seamless as possible. So again, just sort of become your reader for a second and see where your links take them before you hit the publish button. And obviously you can always change things after you publish and edit things, but just try to keep a conscious mind when you're including links on your site, things that people can click on. Where are they actually going to end up? And what is that experience like? Now, another thing to think about is just the sheer number of links that may be included in a particular post or on your website, or just in your website in general. I mean, this is partly why Smart Passive Income blog is being redesigned, because I'm getting a lot of complaints from people, especially new users, who come to the site and they are overwhelmed with the amount of things they can potentially click on. Now, if you go to smartpassiveincome.com right now, you'll see there's a lot of options that I'm giving people. Too many options are bad, because it'll just hinder people. It'll stop them from actually taking any action. It's the sites that have fewer options that can be sort of seen at a glance, that perform much better. Now, copy, text in and around, your links and where people can click for call to actions is very important as well. And if you can pique people's curiosity at the same time when you include those links, you'll do so much better. It's very much like writing a headline. I mean, the point of writing a great headline is to stand out, get noticed, and have people click through to read your post, right? Same thing with your links. You want them to stand out and be compelling enough. Again, we're talking about call to actions here. You want them to stand out and be compelling enough that people would want to click on it, that they want whatever it is on the other end. This has to do, again, with something I learned from Derek from socialtriggers.com. He's sort of my resource for all things psychology. It's this thing called the information gap theory of curiosity, which explains that it's just human nature to want to know what's going on. So if you can create a gap between what people know and what people don't know, they're going to want to fill in that gap, and people will be willing to take action to do so, to click on stuff, to find out that information, to fill in that gap. That's really the theme behind all of this podcast session, knowing where people are and then giving them the means to figure out something or fill in that gap, because people will click when they're curious. People will click when they are curious. So what I want you to do is, the next time you're reading a post, not writing one, but reading one somewhere, see and try to notice how the owners of those blogs or websites are using those links. I mean, we didn't talk much about the sidebar. We could devote an entire session to what to put in your sidebar. There's a lot of debate about that. Do you put everything in there, or do you only put a few important key items? I've seen it work both ways. But when it comes to links within your posts, try and see what kinds of links you are actually clicking on other sites, and which ones you aren't. Which ones are you actually clicking on, and what is the strategy behind there? I did this exercise the past couple of days leading up to this podcast session, and it was actually really interesting. I definitely found that when I didn't understand something and there was a link nearby, sort of link level 1, it actually felt really nice to know that the author was sort of in my head and gave me a way to learn more and read more about something that I didn't know about. And when I did come across these kind of level 1 links, but I already knew that information, I didn't even know that they were there sometimes. I sort of just somehow ignored them and didn't even think anything of it. And it was those articles that were great, that taught me something new, that just blew me away, that just surprised me, where I was actually searching for ways to give back. So if there was like a retweet button, I would do that, or a like button, I would like the article. When it comes to call to actions, it was the call to actions that were surrounded by that just kind of piqued my curiosity, where I really wanted to know what was on the other side of it. That got me to click through quite a bit. So I want you to try this. Keep track for maybe a day or two of sort of what really are you clicking on when you're reading posts. You're going to learn a lot about why you do what you do. Try to do that exercise on your own, and be sure to try and use the methods that you feel work best for your own site. So to finish up, and we've been talking about clicks for over a half hour now. To finish up, let's talk about Be Everywhere for a little bit. Be Everywhere. For those of you who don't know what Be Everywhere is, it's sort of the name of my particular strategy for creating a sort of widespread, almost viral brand online, by not just creating content and pouring energy into a single website, but strategically tapping into resources where audiences already exist through other mediums such as podcasting and YouTube. That's session 28 for those of you who want to listen to that presentation. Now, I'm in the middle of writing a book titled Be Everywhere as well, and I'm making progress on it as we speak, although it's going very slow, but I am making progress. Anyway, the Be Everywhere strategy has worked really well for me, and it's working really well for others too. But at the core of this strategy, even though we're producing content outside of a blog or a website, the core of the strategy still is a great website or a great blog. Why? Because the website or blog is exactly where all of the action takes place, because that's where the clicks happen. You can't click something you're listening to, and you can't click something you're watching, although nowadays those kind of lines are starting to blend a little bit, which is pretty cool. But generally speaking, in the Be Everywhere strategy, your website is the hub. It's where you want all your iTunes listeners, your YouTube traffic from other sites. You want them all to come back to your site, because that is what you can control. Just like we talked about earlier, you can control the user experience on your own site. So get people from all those, arms of your business back to the core, to your site, and then use clicking strategies to control the user experience. So just keep that in mind. So I hope you enjoyed today's session. I kind of wanted to throw something a little bit different at you today. We talked about something really micro, and a lot of times we get into the macro, bigger idea type stuff, but this click thing is very important. So I hope you kind of take one or two things away from today's session. And I would love to hear from you, actually. I want to know what maybe strategies you have or can think of when it comes to getting people to click on stuff on your website. So if you can go to smartpassiveincome.com/session54, you'll see the show notes there. You can leave comments or questions there. You can see what everyone else is saying as far as click strategies. And I'd love to hear from you. So thanks for listening. Have an amazing day, and look out for another session next week on the SPI podcast. We have an amazing guest coming in. And please, if you haven't already, this is my call to action here at the end of the session, please leave me a rating and a review on iTunes. I would really appreciate that. And please just stay safe, stay healthy, and I will talk to you very soon. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast at www.smartpassiveincome.com.
More people dream about building their own business and being their own boss rather than retiring early. But a majority of them never even take the first steps to register the business. Why? Because starting a business can feel overwhelming. With legal forms, paperwork, finances, it's a lot. And that's where Taylor Brands comes in. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal and business assets separate from day one. And from there, you can get access to everything you need to get off the ground, from legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, our listeners get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. Just head to taylorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Taylor Brands. Look, I get it. You want to grow your business, but trying to sell to hundreds or even thousands of people gets very exhausting very fast. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? ScoreApp helps you sell to more people without adding more to your plate. You build a quiz or assessment that your audience actually wants to take. Then they answer a few quick questions and get a personalized result right away. It shows them where they're at and what they need to do next and how you can help. And you build huge amounts of trust before you make even a single offer. No hard sell, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. All you have to do is just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI.